The Learning Boost series is the UC San Diego virtual series of talks introducing you to leaders, dreamers, innovators, and change champions. This series is designed to inspire you with ideas that matter to you and your role, one talk at a time. Today's talk is Resiliency in the Age of Uncertainty, with our champion for creativity and innovation, Pierre Khawand. If you are listening live, then we would love to have you join us in the chat with your questions and comments. Please share your questions and comments in the chat, and at the end, we plan to pose a couple to our featured speaker. If you're watching the recorded version on YouTube, then we ask you to click on the like button and subscribe to the channel. Again, today's talk is Resiliency in the Age of Uncertainty, with our champion for creativity and innovation, Pierre Khawand. Pierre is the founder of People-OnTheGo, a company whose mission is to enable business professionals to communicate and collaborate more effectively using leading-edge technology. He is here for you, your team, and your organization as we seek to accomplish meaningful work. Through his workshops and engagements, Pierre brings breakthrough insights and revolutionary techniques that tackle the core issues of today's workforce. He is the author of several books, including the best-selling Time for Leadership and the workbook, Accomplishing More in Less Time, Less Effort, and Less Stress. In addition to that, Pierre has been a longtime friend to UC San Diego and is a preferred partner for our learning and development needs. Let us give a warm welcome in the chat to Pierre Khawand.
Thank you, Linda, and hello, everyone. So great to be here, and I see many familiar names there, so good to have you again. And I'm very much looking forward to sharing with you today about this topic of how do we deal with uncertainty. And this is such a big topic. There's so much that happens when we live in this world of uncertainty, so many challenges. And these challenges, I'll just mention a few, and there are more. So worrying about health and safety, this continues to be an issue and a challenge. Constant change, things are always changing, and we need to adapt and find new ways and change behaviors. And then the whole set of challenges related to remote and hybrid work and in-person work, and how do we navigate through that? And then, of course, attending to family and community needs and much more. So our approach, and what I'm going to share with you today, is a dual approach. So the approach of addressing the emotional side, which means how we feel about things and taking care of the feeling part, but then also the practical side. So how do we coordinate and how do we do the work? So on the emotional side, what we do is we leverage things like mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and growth mindset. So these are the underlying principles. And then on the practical side, as Linda mentioned earlier, we have a whole methodology. Today, I'm going to extract a couple of specific pieces from that methodology and share them with you. So let's start with the emotional side. So there are three specific topics I'll get into. One is staying calm and how we can stay calm in the midst of uncertainty and difficulties. And then being kind to yourself, and then managing the work. So these are the three topics we'll get to. So let's start with staying calm and first explain what we mean by staying calm. So staying calm is about being able to manage the unpleasant thoughts, emotions, and sensations when we're faced with a difficult, uncertain, or challenging situation. So instead of overreacting or feeling overwhelmed or whatever might happen, being able to notice those feelings that come up and work through them and be in a position to respond more effectively. So instead of reacting, we want to respond more effectively. Now, this is not easy to do. This is not an on-off button. I wish it would be. You know, we can turn it on and okay, now we're calm. But it's not. It's really practices, and in a way, it's like training our nervous system to start to function differently. That's what it is. It's training our nervous system time after time to start to function differently. And so that's why what we did actually, we took a number of mindfulness, emotional intelligence, growth mindset practices, and we packaged them into this one formula I'm about to share with you, which we call the 5-step formula. And this formula is really intended to be an easy way to bring that mindfulness and all these very important practices in a very tangible, concrete way to our daily work. So that's the intention behind this. So the formula, which is actually pretty simple, I'm going to share that with you now. But then I'd like to take you through each of the steps, give you some examples. And then in addition, I also want to give you a chance to do a little practice. I'll give you maybe a minute or so at the end so you can get a feel for it. But let's first talk about some examples and maybe some of the science behind this and how this unfolds. So step number 1 is labeling. So what does labeling mean? It means to step back from the situation and try to assess what is it that I'm experiencing right now, and then give it a label, like a name. So for instance, let's say I start to work on this task and I feel this very unpleasant feeling that may be hindering me or stopping me, or I'm not able to focus and continue. So labeling means to pause for a brief moment and check in. What is it that I'm going through right now? And let's say in this case, I realize this is anxiety. So I label it anxiety. So why is this interesting, you might ask? Because it sounds like so simple and so even trivial. So let me tell you about this study that psychologists did. So what they did is they took people from all walks of life and they had them look at photographs while they had them also hooked to brain scanners so they can see exactly which part of the brain is active and how active. And they showed them some of the photos they showed them, they were very violent photographs. So people in surgeries, people in accidents, lots of blood. So when these people looked at those violent photographs, the middle part of the brain got activated, which, as you probably know, this is the amygdala that's in charge of our emotions and stress response. So that's the part that got activated. So, which makes sense. And then they took these people, they had them go through an 8-week of a mindfulness training program that included techniques such as the labeling. So these people now were very trained when they encounter an emotion like fear, they can step back and name it, like this is fear that's going on right now, or this is sadness, or this is disappointment. So then they went and repeated that first experiment again. And now, when these people looked at the violent photographs, instead of the middle part of the brain being activated, it was the frontal part, it was the prefrontal cortex, which, as you probably know, this is the part that's responsible for our critical thinking and problem solving and awareness. So basically, the nervous system started to function differently. And instead of being hijacked by the middle part, it starts to engage more the more thoughtful part. So that is what labeling can do. But that's not going to happen if we do a mindfulness practice and label once or twice. These people had to do this day in, day out over an 8-week period to see those changes. So that's why, by the way, at the end of the session today, I'm going to share with you all these resources we're talking about, in addition to an e-course that has a practice over a 21-day period. So you get a chance to really put this into real practice. So this is the labeling. So let's go to the ranking. So I have here a ranking model that I want to share with you. So the ranking that we use, which is a scale of 1 to 10. So, so 1 would be the most tragic thing that can ever happen. 10 would be the happiest, best thing that can happen. And then all the shades in between. 5 would be neutral, and then everything else. So let's do a little mini exercise. I'm gonna give you just like 15, 20 seconds, maybe 30 seconds to fill in the scale. If you could draw this, and then if you could write down for you what event in life would be a 1, which means the most tragic that can happen. What event in life would be the happiest, best thing? What would be neutral? And while you're at it, maybe you can also try to add what would be a 3 and what would be an 8. So just like 10, 15 seconds to think about it. And in the time we have today, that's probably not enough time for you to finish the scale, but just putting maybe a few ideas down. And then I'll share with you what we've seen from having done this so many times with many different people, what comes up often in the scale. Okay, so hopefully you were able at least to jot a few things down. So let me share what we've seen over time. And by the way, we're not sharing this to imply that there is one universal scale that we can all use. This is very personal, and we highly recommend each person to kind of finish this exercise and come up with their own scale. But it still helps to see where other people are, because it opens our thinking, gives us ideas. So that's why I'm sharing this with you. So under 1, what comes up here a lot is something about death. And it could be death of a loved one, death of a child, our own. So this comes up here very, very often. Under 10, what comes up quite often is the birth of a child. So it's kind of almost the opposite. For some people, it's finding that lifelong partner. For some people, it's going on a trip around the world. So there's more variety here, but birth definitely stands out. Under 5, one that stands out is just going to work or starting the work day. It's kind of neutral, something we do like every day, and it's just there. 3, a lot what comes up here is about loss. Like it could be losing a job, a big financial loss, or losing a relationship. So this comes up here quite often. Under 8, more of a promotion or going on a nice vacation. I'll add one more because it comes up here also often, and it's good to mention it. Under 2, what we see often is something related to chronic pain or sickness. So this tends to come up as number 2. All right, so now let's say we have a scale. Let's say back to the example I mentioned to you earlier. So I label that situation as being anxiety. And then now I want to rank it. So I go to my scale, I look at the scale and I reflect on it for a bit. I realize this situation is not by any means a 3. It's not even close to a 3, but it's not a 5 either. It's not neutral. It's actually very unpleasant. So I'm going to give it a 4. So let me change color here. So I'm going to give it a 4. So what does the ranking do? How can the ranking help? So 2 ways in which the ranking is going to help calm me down. The first one is it gives me perspective. So instead of being so consumed by what happened, now that I see the full picture, I can put it where it belongs and realize how much that is. So that by itself can help calm me down at least a bit. But in addition, which part of the brain is the ranking engaging? The ranking is engaging the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part. So it's taking that flow away from that middle part that gets so excited and redirecting it more into the thinking part. And that also will help calm me down further. Now, the good news is that most of the time, with the type of uncertainties we deal with and the issues we deal with on a daily basis, probably 1 and 2 are enough for us to feel a little calmer and then ready to move forward. But there are times when that's not enough and we're still feeling that overwhelm or frustration or whatever the feeling is, in which case we'll continue with 3, 4, and 5. I'll come back to that in a minute, but I want to point out couple of things here, which is most of the daily stresses, where do they fall on the scale? Like the things that, you know, we get worked up about on a daily basis, day in, day out, where do they fall on the scale? Probably here. How do we behave on a daily basis? We go all the way here, like the world ends 2-3 times a day. Of course, it's not ending, it's our perception. And we go here. What is this? This is an overreaction of our nervous system. That's all what this is. Basically, our nervous system is trying to protect us, but it's doing so unnecessarily. This right here, this other range right here, this is reality. This is most of our daily stresses. They're in this range. So really staying calm and having a whole different presence and showing up differently and building better relationships is about moving from here to here. And these are the practices we're discussing today. It's making that move from here to here. So so that's the ranking, that's the labeling and the ranking. So now again, what if I'm still in that frustration, overwhelmed, stressful feeling? So how can I then move forward? So then 3, 4, and 5 is my next step. So 3 is to pause, accept, and what it means is to pause again and to ask myself this question: what would it be like to allow this feeling of, let's say, anxiety number 4 or whatever that feeling is? What would it be like to allow it for now, to let it be what it wants to be, and to be curious? So instead of resisting it or trying to fix it or suppress it or whatever else we try to do with it, instead, how about we just pause and try to be curious and try to get close to it so we see what's actually going on and let it be. And actually, this step number 3, that's a transformational step. That is alone likely to help us soften that feeling and turn our head from being in reactive mode into curiosity and acceptance mode, which is likely to soften the feeling and calm us down much further. And equally importantly, it opens the room for step number 4, which is reframing this into a learning opportunity. What can I learn from this feeling of anxiety number 4? And now we're talking about the growth mindset, and we're talking about really at a granular level, turning our minds into being curious and being learners. So 2 things at least we're gonna learn. It could be many, but 2 things definitely we'll learn. The first one is I learned that anxiety number 4 is not gonna kill me. And that's a good thing to notice and to let it sink in that, okay, it's unpleasant, but it's okay. I'm okay and I'm going through it, and I'll be okay going through it again. That is an important learning to let it sink in, because this means the next time I have that similar situation come up and I have that feeling, I'm likely to realize that I do have a precedence, and therefore it was okay and it will be okay. And I may not even at that point to do any formula or anything. It's just going to become part of my emotional memory that this is okay. It's unpleasant, but it's okay. So it's really good to let that message sink in. But then the other part that I'm going to learn is I'm going to learn about my triggers. What triggers anxiety number 4 in me? And that is such an important learning, because as I do this over time and learn about this trigger and that trigger and this other trigger, I'm going to start to get insights into what's behind those triggers. And typically there are some beliefs that I'm holding on to that are causing me to be triggered by this and this and this. And if I uncover those beliefs and work at replacing them by something more realistic and something more constructive, I'm going to shatter most of these triggers and be free of them. So imagine the possibilities. Now, this is a longer term benefit. The short term, I just want to notice, oh, this is what's being triggering for me. And then just start to notice and continue to notice, and the insights will come later. So now that after I reframe, now I can refocus, which means bring my attention back to the context and whatever that context is. If that was that task that I'm working on, now I can go back and work on the task instead of being so distracted and preoccupied with that emotion that popped up. Or if the context is I'm having this important conversation with an important stakeholder, now I can go back and be fully present in that conversation instead of my mind preoccupied with what happened before or what the person said before that I may have misinterpreted or whatever else. I can be present in that conversation. Okay, so this is the 5-step, and again, in that online portal I'm going to give you, you get a chance to review this, to put it in action, to practice it. But for now, I think it still makes sense to do like a mini practice. I call it maybe a micro practice. So let me show you this slide that can help us do this practice easily and quickly. So this is the one. Actually, it's this one. Okay. So think of a difficult situation. So this will be just like a minute. So, but still good to put it a little bit into practice, get a feel for it. And jot it down here, like what was it? Something where you felt overwhelmed or frustrated or stressed. So jot down a few words about it. And then if you could write down the steps, so the labeling, ranking, accepting, reframing, refocusing, and try to go through it, see what you label that situation, and then what you rank it. Even you don't have the full ranking, you can use the one I showed you just for practice. And then if needed, see if you want to go through what would it be like to just feel it right now. And then the reframing, what can I learn? And then back to our webinar. So yeah, go ahead and do this. I'm going to show the scale here so that can be handy for you. And just a minute, so that's not a lot of time. So we'll do that in silence, giving you some time to think and to work through it. Okay, another 15 seconds. All right. Okay, so again, this was just, probably too little time-wise, but hopefully maybe one of the takeaways is you'll continue this and then you see what insights might come up. And this is a practice. It takes, trying it out different times, different situations, and getting, it's like a skill, getting better at it and developing that skill. All right, so with this, let's move into our next topic here, which is being kind to yourself. So I know there's so much about this. You hear it all the time, everywhere, in so many ways. And I'd like to take it a step further. So the way we define it is like this. So being kind to yourself means to cultivate and nurture the ability to notice a negative self-talk and to reframe it into something more realistic and more constructive. So this is being kind to ourselves, like at a deep level, at the micro level. So instead of letting the self-talk, which can be very daunting and take us in all kinds of judgments and whatever self-limiting beliefs and all this, we want to start to notice that and then be in a position to pause and redirect that thought. Um, how do we do that? Well, it's not that easy. Nothing we're talking about today is easy, but it's all achievable and it's all easy when we take it in small steps. So the way we do this is through mindfulness practices, which can help us slow down the nervous system just enough so that we can notice that self-talk and we can then basically reframe it into something more positive or more realistic. It doesn't have to be positive because the self-talk usually is extreme, it's one-sided, it's too much blame in it and too much other irrational beliefs. So that's the deal. So now I'd like us actually, we do have some time, we can spare 5 minutes to do a mindfulness practice all together. How is that? So this way it's not just, in theory, let's put it into action. So we have here it's something that I've prepared for, we typically do it with this course and this presentation. Some of you have been through some of my other presentation, you may have seen it. It's a short, about 6 minutes, and it is about 3 capabilities. The first one is noticing when our mind wanders. The second capability we're building here is bringing our attention where we want it to be. And then the third one is being kind to ourselves. And they're very related. They build on each other. That's why the being kind comes at the end. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to share this. I'm going to make sure that you can hear the audio. So I'm going to share the sound and let's go for it.
Hi, and welcome to the 21-day challenge core mindfulness meditation practice. Let's start by adjusting our posture, straightening our back, relaxing the shoulders, lifting the chin up just a bit so you're more alert, preferably closing the eyes if possible so we're not distracted by the surroundings. Take a deep breath, inhaling slowly and exhaling slowly. And again, inhaling slowly and exhaling slowly. And continue this slow, deep breathing on your own and throughout this practice while I share with you some thoughts along the way. By the way, even a minute or two of this slow, deep breathing calms down the nervous system. This is actually the perfect mindfulness break when all you have is 1 or 2 minutes. Today, though, we're going to do much more than just the breathing. I would like you to bring your attention to the physical sensation of breathing. So, where are you feeling the breath? For some people, it's in the nostrils, others in the chest, or maybe the abdomen. So, where is that for you? And as you try to pay attention to the physical sensation of the breath, if your mind wanders, which is likely to happen, All you have to do is bring your attention back to the physical sensation of breathing. So when you notice that your mind wandered, just gently bring your attention back to the physical sensation of the breath. What we're practicing here are two core capabilities. First, it's noticing when the mind wanders, and second, bringing our attention back. In other words, we are sharpening our ability to manage our attention. So let's continue practicing. When your mind wanders, what are you telling yourself? Many people report that they notice self talk, usually something like, oh no, my mind wandered, or I'm not good at this, or this is not working. If you notice similar self talk, acknowledge it first, and then gently reframe it into something more realistic. As the growth mindset tells us, appreciate the effort you're putting in. Something like, I'm glad I noticed that my mind wandered. I'm glad I'm developing the capability of noticing. So, this is what we refer to as being kind to yourself, which means when things don't go as expected or desired, instead of scolding yourself or scolding the world, step back and gently acknowledge what went on and then reframe it into something more realistic. So, if we start to be kind to ourselves at this micro level, this habit will grow in other areas and extend to other people. So, let's practice being kind to ourselves for a few more breaths. In conclusion, congratulate yourself for the effort you just put in right now. And just in case your self talk is still too loud, acknowledge it and bring your attention back gently but firmly to congratulating yourself. Put a soft smile on your face, and when you're ready, open your eyes and have a mindful rest of your workday or evening.
All right. So, yeah, so this was our practice, and this practice and many other resources. So let me quickly show you what we're going to give you at the end. So, this is the e-course you're going to get in addition to the slides and some other things, which includes 21 practices. We call it 21 practices for happiness and accomplishment at work. You can do it one a day, takes 5-10 minutes. So, you can do it one a week, let it take 21 weeks, whatever works. So that's what you're going to get at the end, including, so these are not meditation, by the way, these are like real emotional intelligence, working with intention, self-care. So a lot about it that you can make use of. But for now, let's continue with where we want to go, which is managing the work. So we've covered staying calm, being kind, and now managing the work. So managing the work, I'd like to start with a mini hands-on exercise, actually. So we're gonna do this, dive right into the hands-on exercise. So can you think of an important priority or task? Well, actually, let's not think about unexpectedly come up for now. Let's just think about an important priority or task that you have coming up in the next few days. So something important that you want to accomplish. And if you could jot it down somewhere, so you can do this on paper or electronically. So just that one priority. And if you could jot it down. And then in the second column, if you can break it down into small steps, especially if it's an important big priority or big task. So if you could break it down into smaller steps, and these could be subtasks, could be smaller steps, but what do you need to do to get this completed? So basically, this is the breakdown column. And then if you could identify what's the immediate step, what needs to happen first. So typically there's one, sometimes two things that need to happen before I can do the rest. So identify those immediate steps and put them, if you would, in the next column. And the last thing we're gonna do is this. If you can go to your calendar, and we're going to schedule time for these on the calendar. So that could be today at 2 o'clock. You're gonna spend half an hour on these. It could be tomorrow morning, first thing in the morning, you're gonna spend 45 minutes, whatever makes sense. So basically, taking those two and making them visible on your calendar. So I'll give you another 10, 15 seconds to finish this. And then I'm gonna talk about the bigger picture and what this really means in the bigger picture. So, so first of all, what this is a small part of a bigger tool, which we call the immediate priorities matrix. So this is the immediate priorities matrix. And it's something you would prepare for the next 2 weeks, where you identify the priorities on your plate. For each priority, you break it down into smaller subtasks or steps. You identify the immediate. You estimate how long it takes you to do the immediate. And then what's the deadline for the immediate. And then you go to the calendar and schedule the immediate. So this is a process that is totally intended to help create some certainty and also some more transparency when we're all scattered between remote and hybrid and some in person. So how do we communicate more clearly about what's keeping us busy and communicate with our manager, communicate with our team, with other stakeholders. So these are the tools that can help tremendously. Now I'm gonna add to this one more thing. So one thing we all kind of suffer from to various degrees is that unexpected priorities land on our lap. And for some, this happens all the time. For some, hopefully not everyone, but for many, this tends to happen much more often than what we would like it to happen. So how can we manage that? So let's say a whole new priority lands in my world and I have to deal with it. So typically our nervous system, what it does, it thinks this is a threat, and it starts to release the stress hormones that we typically release under stress. So this is that middle part of the brain becomes reactive when we're faced with a new task or priority that are big or complicated or sudden that we didn't expect. So instead, what this method is about, if I'm faced with such a priority, I'm gonna jot it down. So this will be the new priority that just showed up out of nowhere. I'm going to jot it down. And then I'm going to break it down into smaller steps, identify the immediate that needs to happen first, and then either do it if I can, or if I can't do it, I'm going to schedule it for a time where I can do it. Or if it's not even possible to do it, I'm going to set expectations and say, hey, this can be done now, but I'll have it done maybe the following afternoon, or maybe negotiate that this may not fit into the scheme of things, and maybe it needs to be delegated or reduced or somehow repackaged. So not forgetting that setting expectations and negotiation are probably two of the very important skills in the age of uncertainty, because there's no way we can expect all the things that are going to happen and how. So we want to develop those skills of setting expectations and negotiation. But let me go back to this whole process. So instead of my nervous system, the middle part of my nervous system, hijacking pretty much how I feel, how I react, I'm going to use the frontal part, the prefrontal cortex, the thinking part, to help me write it down, break it down into steps. So now I'm really engaging the thinking part, and I'm calming down my nervous system, because it's moving, the energy and the flow are moving away from that overreactive part and starting to engage the thinking part. So I'm calming myself down, but not only I'm calming myself down, I'm making progress on getting this moving forward. And if needed, I might, set expectations and negotiate. So this is the method. I have here for you a sample in the online portal I'm going to give you. You have a sample and a template. So those who are enticed, they want to start to work on their 2-week matrix, they can do so with the template. I also have, in addition to the slides, I have the meditation practice we did today, and a relaxation practice for those who want to take like 5 minutes in the afternoon just to calm down the mind and the body and the feelings. And in this online portal also, this is where the complimentary bonus, this is something you need to take advantage of today. This is pretty much for those who are eager to put all this into practice. And this is the one I showed you earlier. Let me go back to that slide. So these are the 21 practices, and what you need to do is sign up. So once you click on here, you can sign up for your complimentary seat. And this is what the e-course looks like. This is the 21 practices. So every day you first go through the getting started. I would suggest you block 15 minutes on your calendar just to do the getting started sometime this week or early next week, and then decide when you're going to start, and then you can start the practices. One a day, one a week, it doesn't matter, as long as you're consistent and you're building those skills. So I think with this we're ready, actually, Linda, to move into the questions and answers. I have a bunch of other resources here. So this is all, we're going to share the link with you. I'll share it now, actually, but we can start to be ready for questions and answers, Linda. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much, Pierre. And we have had a lot of questions and comments in the chat, and some of them I've received in private chat as well. I see the most recent comment was to view the matrix again. But I want to thank everyone so far for joining us live for the Learning Boost series. I have been taking questions and comments in the chat, and we have a couple of questions that we can address. Let me copy and paste one of them that came so that everyone can see. This question came after the 5-minute meditation. What other recommendations does Pierre have for encouraging self-kindness and positive self-talk?
Yeah. So after the meditation, and the meditation, again, the most impact we get from it is by doing it repeatedly, like maybe daily or every so often, but doing it repeatedly. So one practice that helped many people is having a journal.
Oh,
And in that journal, when situations come up and you suddenly notice some unpleasant thing, feeling, or sensation, or is to try to stop and reflect, what am I telling myself in that moment? And see if you notice some self-talk that you can jot down. And that gives you something to work with. So maybe then later, when you have a little more time, you can reflect on those self-talk and you see, does that make sense? Can I reframe it into something more realistic? And that combined, so the journaling combined with practices like the one we did today can be very powerful together. So yeah, that's one idea.
okay. Thank you. We have another question. I'll put that in the chat too. This question came up during the introduction to the 5 steps and specifically around awareness as that first step. So you mentioned a study where participants did mindfulness for 8 weeks, and then you've commented a few times that you have a 21-day challenge. How much time do I need to spend in order to make mindfulness a habit?
Yeah, good one. Yeah, so I'll give you some thoughts on this, and this is not something that it has a solid like one answer. And so first of all, what we say is no matter what you can do is good. So even if you do 5 minutes a day, that's a good step. That's a great step. If you can make it consistent, that's even better because the effect is cumulative. That's something that sometimes we forget. The effect is cumulative. So now there is this idea that there is that sweet spot of 20 minutes of meditation per day that gives you like the solid over time, that solid set of benefits that can be, life changing. And that's kind of like anywhere you go between few minutes to 20 minutes, you're good. So, and if you can work towards that 20-minute thing, that's great. Now we have people, and I'm in many different circles of mindfulness, and we have people who do much more, but that's, that's not go too ambitious. I'm sure there are people on the call who've been, doing maybe much more of this, but I would say if you haven't yet, and you want to start, even if you dedicate 5-10 minutes a day, that's a great place to start. And if you can work towards having that 20 minutes and feeling, stopping and feeling calm and letting the nervous system calm down, that can be transformational.
Thank you. And then the next one I have is a comment I received from the audience. And I think this comment might be reflective of more thoughts and feelings in the group. So I just want to hear how you would respond. I'm exhausted. I've been anxious for so long that it seems so much easier to just keep burning out than to change. And I know this doesn't make sense, but this is how I feel.
Yeah. Well, first I wanna, appreciate the sharing. And I also wanna indicate that you're not alone. I think there is now a lot of this that we're seeing for all kinds of reasons, including the last 2 years of all kinds of challenges. So so that's one thing that's good to think about, that, and it can help us sometimes normalize it, like this is a very unpleasant time in many ways, and if we are impacted by it, we're not alone. So that's the first thing to realize. And then in terms of which could be more interesting, the sticking to the way things are, or potentially adopting a change, mindfulness, or whatever else, I would say it's good to experiment. So basically try out something, maybe something small and attainable, and see if you can confirm your belief. So the belief now is that it's easier to continue that track of burning out versus doing something. That's a belief. So, but test it out. If you try something and see if you make some progress and feel better, maybe that belief is not correct, or maybe it is correct. So I would say, we're the best judge for what works for us, but definitely the idea of challenging the status quo and challenging the current belief and situation can be a learning opportunity, and it can really bring some amazing things. So yeah, so that's kind of what came to my mind. But thank you for sharing. This is, real situations, and we don't want to by any means underestimate them or take them like, oh yeah, that's easy, you just do this. No, this is really a journey, and best wishes in that journey.
Thank you, Pierre. And that comment got some chat and along with it as well. So thank you to those who this spoke to. Thank you for to the person who wrote it originally as well. I have one last question. I think we have time.
Oh, you got muted accidentally, Linda.
Thank you for, sorry about that. Thank you very much to the person who shared that comment, because if we look at the chat, there is some energy around that, some people feeling the same. And I want to appreciate the person who was willing to share. It doesn't seem that you're alone at all. The last question I think we have time for has to do with all of the resources that you've given us. There's a lot. There's a lot. And now we're trying to think, with all of the resources that you've given, the 21-day challenge, immediate priorities matrix, relaxation practice, 21 practices, or 21-day challenge, how do we decide where to start?
Good one. Good question. So, what I would recommend is to, let me make sure I go to the right one. Yes. So I would recommend you start with this one, which is that when you can ignore everything else and just go to this online portal, the one that I shared with you, and then register for your complimentary seat in this one, and just do this one. So this is about 5 or 10 minutes a day. And again, you can do it just once a week, so you don't have to do it every day. I think some people, when they get this, they do it once a day, a practice a day, 5-10 minutes, and they finish it in 21 days, and they really make some very great breakthroughs. But that doesn't work for everyone. For other people, they say, I'm going to do 2 a week, like Monday and Wednesday. So you can pace yourself even once a week, like it will be 5-10 minutes a week. So that will be totally achievable. But what I would recommend, the one thing I would recommend from today, you block 15 minutes on your calendar sometime in the next few days, like preferably maybe today or tomorrow, just to go over the getting started, so you're ready to start, because it prepares you for how to start and how to pace yourself and so forth. And then choose a start date, and then start with practice 1. So that is a way to kind of say, just take it incrementally, small steps, and then just seeing what happens. Curiosity, like, I'll be curious, what's going to happen after I try this practice, and then see what happens. Yeah.
Thank you, Pierre. I think that's all the time that we had for today for the questions and the comments. And I want to thank all of you for joining us live today. If you have any questions after the talk, of course, you can send us an email at staffeducation@ucsd.edu. Let me also remind you that in closing, we will remind everyone that the UC San Diego Learning Boost series is here for you to learn, to give you a small and mighty learning boost, to leverage, to inspire you to leverage inspiration into bite-sized risk-taking, and to lead the way towards richer, more meaningful conversations. Remember that you are the connection point between an idea and a philosophy and a practice. With that, we thank Pierre for being with us today. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Linda, and best wishes, everyone. Great to be here with you all. Take care.